my courageous one. Let me show you something about yourself that you have not fully grasped yet. Not the version of you that walks through crowded rooms wondering if you belong. Not the version that replays old mistakes in the quiet hours. Not the version shaped by every hard word someone spoke over you, every time a door slammed shut in your face, every season where the ground beneath you felt uncertain and soft. There is a deeper version of you, a truer version, one that was established long before any of those experiences left their marks. And that is the version I want to speak to today, the one underneath all the noise, the one I designed, the one I know completely, the one I have never once stopped seeing with full clarity, even when you could barely see yourself at all. You were built for something, not in the vague, poetic way people sometimes say it when they are trying to make someone feel better with words they do not fully mean. Not as an encouragement designed to temporarily lift your mood before the next difficulty arrives. Built for something real. Built with intention and design and precise purpose. The way an architect draws every single line of a structure before a single stone is placed. Every measurement calculated, every material specified, every tolerance for stress tested in theory before construction begins. And I am that architect. Before your parents thought of you, before the cells of your body were knit together in the most extraordinary act of biological poetry, before your name existed in any human record or any earthly register, I had already drawn the plans. I knew what materials you would be made of. I knew what pressures you would face. I chose every element of your construction because I knew exactly what you were going to need to hold up under the weight of your calling. This is not a metaphor I use carelessly. When I say built, I mean it in the most literal spiritual sense available to you. Your character, your capacity for empathy that sometimes overwhelms you with how deeply you feel what others carry. Your stubbornness in the face of defeat that has kept you going long past the point where most people would have stopped. The way your mind keeps returning to questions others stopped asking years ago because the questions were too uncomfortable or too large or too inconvenient to hold. The deep ache in you for justice and truth and something real that cannot be manufactured by the world's offerings. None of that is accidental. Those were specifications. Those were features, not flaws. The architect put them there because the building required them, because the life I designed for you to live required exactly those materials, in exactly those proportions. Now here's what I want you to understand, and I want you to stay with me as this builds, because this is going somewhere important. Somewhere that will matter to how you carry yourself for years from today. You have been living as though your identity is something you construct day by day, through your choices and your successes and your failures. As if who you are is assembled one brick at a time, based on what you manage to accomplish before the end of any given week. As if a good day adds something to the structure of your worth and a bad day removes it. As if the opinion of the right people could confirm that the building is sound, and the opinion of the wrong ones could call the whole thing into question. And I understand why you think that way. The world taught you to think that way. Performance, results, outcomes. What you produce, what you achieve, what you accumulate. These are the currencies of worth in the world's economy. And so you have learned, over years of living in that economy, to measure yourself by what you produce. Every time production slows, every time a season comes where the output is not what you expected or what you were working toward, every time you sit at the end of a day and cannot point to something concrete and say, I did that, today was worth something, you feel the structure of your identity wobble. You feel it in your chest, that quiet destabilization, the question rising from somewhere deep. Am I okay? Am I still okay? But that is not how I built you. Your identity is not something you are assembling. It was established before you laid a single brick of your own life. It was declared before you had a chance to succeed or fail at anything. Before your first word, before your first choice, before your first experience of the world shaping you in directions both gentle and brutal. Who you are in me was already complete, already defined, already permanent. Who you are in me is not a work in progress in the way you think it is. The foundation was poured and set and cured long before you arrived. What you are doing now, every day, every choice, every act of courage or faith or simple perseverance through a Tuesday that feels exactly like every other Tuesday is not constructing the foundation. It is building upward on a foundation that is already perfect and already complete and already permanently, irrevocably yours. So when something shakes the upper floors, when a circumstance rattles the walls you have built from your own effort and your own striving, when a relationship cracks under pressure or a plan fails or a season of disappointment lasts longer than you thought you could manage, the answer is not panic. The answer is not to question whether the whole structure is unsound. The answer is to look down, to press your feet into the ground and feel what is underneath you. The foundation does not move. The foundation has never moved. Not when you doubted, not when you wandered, not when you chose something that took you away from what I had for you, not when you felt in your most honest moments like the gap between who you were supposed to be and who you actually were was too large to bridge. The foundation held through all of that. The foundation will hold through whatever comes next. Because I said it, and what I said, no force in the created order has the power to unseat. Let me linger here for a moment, because I do not want you to move past this too quickly. The tendency, when you hear something good about yourself, is to hold it at arm's length, to let it comfort you briefly before you reach for the list of reasons it might not quite apply to your specific situation, to accept the general truth while quietly exempting yourself from it. I've watched you do this many times. You receive a word of encouragement, and even as you feel it land, part of you is already building the case for why the encourager did not have full information, why the encouraging word would be modified or withdrawn if they really knew you, if they saw all of it. So let me be direct with you. I do see all of it. I see the parts you show and the parts you hide. I see the public version and the private one. I see the prayers you pray with confidence and the doubts that live alongside them that you rarely put into words. I see the history you summarize for others and the version you play for yourself alone, the unedited one with all the footage included. I see what you did when no one was watching, and I see why you did it, not just the surface reason but the deeper one, the one underneath the surface reason, the one even you are not always willing to look at directly. I see all of it. And what I want to say to you, having seen all of it, is that the foundation is still solid. The declaration is still intact. The choosing is still choosing, not despite what I see. Having fully seen it, I am telling you that none of it changes what was built into the ground of your existence before any of it happened. This is not ignorant love. This is love that operates at a level above what the evidence can threaten. The love I have for you is not an evaluation of your performance that turned out positive. It is an attribute of my own nature expressed toward you in a permanent choice that does not waver when the evaluation would come out differently. You have been chosen, not selected from a pool of better candidates as a runner-up, receiving my attention by default because everyone else was disqualified. Not chosen because you were the most impressive option available. Not chosen because the merits of your case, if presented to an impartial judge, would produce a verdict in your favor. Chosen because my choosing is not based on your impressiveness. My choosing is based on my love, and my love is based on nothing outside of itself. I love you because I am love. I chose you because I chose to love you. And my choices do not expire. They do not come with conditions attached that, once unmet, trigger a reversal clause. When I say you are mine, that is a permanent declaration made from the architecture of my own eternal nature, and it stands as long as I stand, which is to say, it stands forever without any possibility of conclusion. Think about what that means for a moment. Not the theological concept, the actual implication for your actual life. If my choice of you cannot be reversed, then nothing that has happened to you, or because of you, can actually strip away the foundation of who you are. The worst thing you have ever done is not powerful enough to undo what I built. The most crushing disappointment you have ever experienced is not structurally capable of collapsing what I set as the groundwork of your existence. Your identity in me was declared in a realm above time and circumstance. It is not subject to the same deterioration that affects everything in the physical world. Stone erodes. Steel rusts. Wood rots. Everything in the created world is in some process of change that points toward entropy. But the identity I spoke over you before your first breath is as intact today as it was in the moment I first thought of you, which was before the stars had names, before the foundations of the earth were laid, before the concept of time was introduced into a universe that had not yet been called into being by my word. You may have spent years feeling like something was broken in you, that deep down, at the structural level, there was a flaw, a crack that ran all the way through the material of who you are, not just a surface imperfection, but something fundamental, something that explained why certain things always seemed harder for you than for others, why the same patterns kept returning, why you kept finding yourself in situations that felt familiar in the worst possible ways. Maybe someone pointed at something in your life and said, "This is evidence that you are defective." Maybe your own history gave you reasons to wonder if the core material was sound, and so you tried to compensate. You built extra walls. You reinforced from the outside. You added layer upon layer of effort and achievement and performance and managing how you were perceived, hoping that if you could just build high enough and thick enough on the outside, no one would notice, and more importantly, you would not have to notice what you were convinced was a fracture somewhere deep in the foundation. I need to tell you something about that fracture you thought was there. When I look at the place you thought was broken, what I see is not a crack. What I see is a joint. Architects place joints in structures intentionally, not every joint, but the ones that matter most. A joint is not a weakness. A joint is the place where two parts connect, and when the connection is properly made, the joint is stronger than either part alone. Stone meets stone at a mortar joint, and the junction holds more weight than the individual stones. Steel members are joined with connections that, when properly engineered, exceed the strength of the members themselves. The places in you that have been bent by difficulty are joints. They are connection points. They are where my strength and your experience meet and form something that is more durable than either one separately. Every place that has been pressed, every place that has been heated by the intensity of a difficult season and then allowed to cool, is a place where the material has been tested and proven. Tested material is more reliable than untested material. A beam that has held weight and continued to hold is a beam whose capacity is known. You are not fragile. You are proven. And the proof is in your history of still being here. I want to speak now to the specific quality I built into your foundation that we have not yet named directly. There is something in you that has survived every attempt to destroy it. Every single one. You know what I am talking about, even if you have never put it into words. Something that kept you in the room when everyone else left. Something that made you try again when trying again made no logical sense whatsoever. When the evidence against trying again was extensive and well organized and convincing to everyone who evaluated it from the outside. Something that got you vertical on the mornings when staying horizontal seemed like the only reasonable option, the only honest response to what life was presenting. Something that would not let you fully give up even when you told yourself out loud, with every intention of meaning it, that you were giving up. That something has a name. It is the imprint of my nature on your nature. It is the trace of my character woven into your character at the level of your making. I built it there because I knew you would need it. And you have used it. Every single time you thought you were running on empty and somehow found another mile in you, you were running on that, on what I placed inside you before you knew you would need it. Now let me address something directly, because I know where some of your thoughts have gone as you listen to this. You are thinking about a specific time when that quality seemed to fail you. A specific moment, or season, or decision when you actually did give up on something. When you actually did walk away, or stay down too long, or make the choice that took you in a direction you are not proud of. And you are wondering whether I am describing someone else, someone with a cleaner track record, someone more spiritually consistent, someone more together than you actually are. The gap between the picture I am painting and your specific lived experience is making you uncertain about whether the picture is really for you. Let me meet you right there. In that specific space of uncertainty. Not talk around it, but walk into it with you. Giving up on something is not the same as losing the foundation. Walking away from a specific situation, even a situation that mattered, is not the same as the structural material of who you are collapsing. Humans are not buildings that stand or fall all at once. You are far more complex and interesting than that. You can make a wrong turn on the road and still arrive at the right destination. You can take a detour, a very long and very costly detour that consumed years and left marks, and still end up exactly where you were always meant to be. Because I do not navigate by the most efficient route. I navigate by the route that produces what needs to be produced in you. Sometimes the detour is the route. Sometimes the thing that felt like a catastrophic mistake was the section of the journey that made the rest of it possible. Sometimes the failure that seemed to set you back most significantly was the one that went deepest into you and left behind the material that everything else would later be built on. I was not surprised by any of it. Not by the turning away. Not by the long silence between us, the seasons where you stopped talking to me because you had decided I was not listening, or because the pain of engagement felt greater than the pain of distance, or because something happened that made the idea of intimacy with me feel dangerous or unreliable. Not by the choices you made in those seasons that took you in directions I wish you had not gone. Not because I needed things to go a particular way for my own sake, but because I watched what those directions cost you, and it cost more than I wanted you to pay. I was not surprised by any of it. I built a foundation large enough to hold the weight of all of that. My grace is not a thin coating on the surface that can be worn away by the friction of your failures. It is part of the structural material itself, woven through every layer, so that even under the most significant stress, the underlying integrity of what I built in you remains intact. Let me build this further because we have only just begun, and there is a great deal more ground to cover together. There is a concept in architecture called load-bearing. Most walls in a structure are not load-bearing. They are partition walls. Interior walls that define spaces and provide a sense of structure and organization, but do not actually carry the weight of what is above them. You can remove them, renovate around them, cut new doorways through them, change them entirely, and the stability of the building is unaffected. But load-bearing walls are different. These are the walls that the structural weight actually passes through, the walls whose removal would cause the floors above to sink, the walls that make the whole thing possible. Knowing which walls are load-bearing is the difference between a renovation that transforms a space into something more beautiful and functional, and a disaster that compromises the integrity of the whole structure. Here is what I want to show you about your own construction. Not everything that has been built into your life over the years is load-bearing. Some of it, maybe a significant portion of it, was put there by other people, by culture, by fear, by the accumulated weight of others' expectations of who you should be and what you should want, and how you should spend your days, and what success should look like, and whether what you actually care about is worth caring about. Some of those walls were installed in your childhood, by adults who were doing the best they could with what they had, but who did not always know which walls you actually needed. Some were added later, by circumstances or by your own protective responses to pain. Some have been sitting in your interior space for so long that you have forgotten you had any say in whether they should be there. Some of the walls you are defending most fiercely right now are not load-bearing. They are partition walls. And I have been waiting for you to let me renovate. Not demolish, renovate. There is a meaningful difference, and the difference matters for how you receive this. I am not standing at the edge of your life with the intent to tear everything down and start over. I am an architect who loves what he has been building and wants to help you discover which elements are structural and which ones have been taking up space they do not need to take up. When a space is renovated well, it does not feel violated. It feels like finally seeing the room the way it was meant to look all along. Something that was cluttered and confused becomes clear. Something that was poorly arranged becomes functional. Something that was organized around the wrong priority gets reorganized around the right one, and suddenly the whole space works better than it did before. The walls I built, the ones I have put there from the beginning, are still there. Every single one of them. Your capacity to love, even when love costs you something, even when loving a specific person or a specific community has resulted in your own pain. Your refusal to believe, at the very core of you, that the story is over even when the evidence being presented argues strongly for closure. Your instinct towards something greater than the visible, that persistent sense that there is more going on than the surface level can account for, that something in you reaches for even when you cannot name what it is reaching for. Your hunger for meaning that has never been fully satisfied by anything the world offered you, because it was designed to be satisfied by me and only by me. It was calibrated to the shape of relationship with the infinite, and nothing finite has ever quite fit. Those walls are load-bearing. Those walls are exactly where I put them, and exactly where they need to be. Those walls will hold the weight of everything you are being called to carry. And now, I want to take you deeper into what this foundation actually means for how you walk through the world, because understanding it in theory is one thing, something worth having but not the destination. I want you to feel it beneath your feet. I want the knowing to descend from your mind into your body, into the way you breathe, into the pace of your steps, into the steadiness of your voice when circumstances would prefer your voice to shake. I want you to walk into the rooms of your daily life differently because of what you know about what is underneath you. Not with arrogance, not with a performance of confidence that exhausts you to maintain, with the effortless kind. The kind that comes not from trying to be confident, but from having something real underneath you that you are not having to pretend is there. When a building has a sound foundation, it can bear loads that would collapse a building with a weak one. Engineers know this and calculate accordingly. They design buildings to withstand specific forces: lateral forces from wind, vertical forces from gravity, dynamic forces from movement, and the load capacity of the structure depends entirely on what is underneath, on how deep the foundation was poured, on how solid the ground below it is, on how well the connection between foundation and structure was made. If the foundation is calculated correctly and built correctly, the floors above can hold tremendous weight. The walls can withstand lateral forces that would push a less founded structure off its base. The whole structure can sway, actually flex in response to force, without breaking, because flexible strength is actually greater than rigid brittleness, and a well-built structure knows how to move under pressure without collapsing under it. This is who you are in me. You can take the load. Not because you are superhuman. Not because you are somehow tougher than everyone else who has struggled. Not because you have some special spiritual quality that most people lack. But because the foundation underneath your life was not designed by a human engineer with limited materials and incomplete calculations and best guesses about what forces you would face. It was designed by the creator of physics itself, who knows better than any engineer who has ever lived what forces you would face, who designed the laws of force and resistance and material integrity, who built you to bear exactly those forces and no more. I do not overload my own structures. I know what you can carry, and I will not put more on you than what you were designed to hold. Though I will always work in collaboration with you to identify and release what you are carrying, that I never designed you to carry at all. Some of you have been carrying weight that is not yours. Weight that came from someone else's collapse, someone else's failure, someone else's unprocessed pain that got handed down to you because it had nowhere else to go and you were close enough and open enough to receive it. And you have been treating it as though it were part of your structure, as though you were supposed to hold it, as though releasing it would mean abandoning someone who needed you, or failing some obligation you never actually agreed to. I am the architect. I know which loads belong in this building, and which loads were placed here by something other than my design. And I'm qualified to help you distinguish between the two, to look at what you are carrying and say with authority, "This one is yours to carry, and I will walk beside you in it, and this one does not belong here." And releasing it is not irresponsibility. It is honesty about what this building was made for. When the wrong loads are removed, you will find out how much more room there is, how much more capacity there is for what I actually designed your life to hold. So now you know something foundational. You are not constructed by your circumstances. You are not defined by your worst chapters. You are not a building without a foundation, scrambling frantically to pile rubble beneath yourself, so you do not sink into the soft ground of your own insufficiency. You are a structure whose foundation was laid in eternity, by hands that have never made a mistake, for purposes that will not be abandoned because the difficulty of the project exceeded the builder's commitment. The difficulty has never once exceeded my commitment. Nothing about your life has made me want to stop building. I have been building since before you began, and I will be building until everything I planned for you is fully complete and fully visible. And that changes everything about how we proceed from here. There is something that belongs to you that cannot be taken. I want to spend time with you here, a significant amount of time, because this is where many of my children get confused, and the confusion costs them dearly. Not in dramatic, obvious ways necessarily, but in the quality of their daily experience. In the amount of energy they spend defending something that was never actually in danger. In the anxiety they carry about losing something that was never within reach of being lost. They understand in theory that they are loved, that they are chosen, that they belong to me. But they live as though all of that is conditional, as though one wrong step, one season of doubt, one period of distance could revoke what was declared over them in eternity. And so they spend enormous energy trying to secure what was never in danger of being lost, trying to prove what was already proven, trying to earn what was already given. Let me tell you about the nature of what I have given you. When a king grants citizenship to someone, that citizenship comes with rights and protections and access that are not temporary, not subject to renewal, not dependent on continued performance at a standard the king approves of. The person does not have to re-earn their citizenship every morning. They do not wake up and hope that today their legal status is still intact, that no overnight development has changed their standing, that the grant made to them yesterday still applies in the circumstances of today. The grant was made, the papers were signed, the declaration was issued at a level of authority that cannot be overturned by any lower authority, and no force operating at a level inferior to the one that granted it can rescind it. The lesser power cannot undo what the greater power has established. That is not how authority structures work. You are a citizen of my kingdom, not a visitor with a temporary pass, not a guest worker on a provisional permit that requires renewal based on behavior evaluations, not someone who wandered in from another jurisdiction and is hoping not to be noticed or deported. A citizen with full standing, full rights, full access to everything the kingdom provides, full legal protection under the laws that govern my domain, and the one who granted that citizenship is the highest authority in existence, above every government, every power, every principality, every force, visible and invisible, that operates in the created order. Which means there is no court above me. There is no power that can overrule my declaration. There is no argument that can be made at any level of the created order that could succeed in stripping what I have placed on you. The legal reality of your position in me was established by the most permanent act in history, sealed in the most unbreakable way possible, signed not in ink, but in the most costly and permanent currency in existence, and registered in a record that does not fade, does not deteriorate, does not get lost in fires or floods or the passage of time. Now here is what I want you to feel in your bones, not just to understand in your mind, because these things have to travel from comprehension to experience before they actually change how you live. And the journey from mind to life is one that many people never complete, not because they are unwilling, but because they have never been invited to do it deliberately. So let me invite you. Feel this. Your position is yours right now. In this specific moment of your specific life, with all of its current complications and unresolved questions and ongoing struggles and things that are not yet what you hoped they would be. In this moment, with everything you know about your history and everything you do not know about your future. In this moment, exactly as you are. Your citizenship in my kingdom is not contingent on having your life figured out. It is not dependent on being in a good season. It does not require you to present a clean record before you are allowed to invoke its protections. The protections come with the citizenship, not with your performance as a citizen. You do not have to earn what was granted. You have to receive what was given. This matters enormously for how you walk through difficulty. When difficulty comes, and it will come because you live in a world that is still working toward its full restoration, you do not face it as a civilian with no institutional backing, no protection, no resources beyond what you can personally provide for yourself. You face it as someone with the full weight of heaven's resources behind them. Not resources you have to beg for on your knees until the begging reaches some threshold that triggers a release. Not resources that might or might not be available, depending on some evaluation of your worthiness that happens behind closed doors you cannot see into. Resources that are already structurally attached to your position, that come with the citizenship the way that access to certain buildings comes with a particular identification badge. Present the identification and the access opens. The backing comes with the citizenship. You do not file a separate application for it. Let me take this further because I want you to understand something about the nature of what the opposition is actually attempting when difficulty comes against you. And I want you to understand it clearly, because a misunderstanding of what the opposition is and is not capable of changes how you respond to it in ways that matter. Here is the truth about what opposes you. It is not powerful enough to strip your citizenship. That is beyond anything it has the power to accomplish. The authority under which your citizenship was granted is categorically above anything in the created order that would attempt to revoke it. So instead, what it attempts is something more subtle and in some ways more effective. It tries to convince you that your citizenship has already been stripped, or was never real to begin with, or has some technicality, some fine print, some clause you did not read that makes it invalid in your specific case. It operates entirely in the realm of perception. It cannot change the reality of your position, so it works to change your perception of your position. It tries to get you to live as though you have no backing, no protection, no access to what your position actually provides. Not because it has removed those things, it cannot, but because if it can convince you they are gone, you will stop reaching for them. You will stop drawing on what you actually have. You will live in the poverty of someone with nothing when you actually have access to everything you need. The battle that happens around your life is largely a battle over what you believe about your position, not a battle over whether the position is real. The position is real. It was established and cannot be unestablished. The question the adversary constantly presses from every possible angle, using every available piece of your personal history as evidence, is whether you will act as though the position is real, whether you will draw on what you actually have available to you, whether you will stand in the confidence that belongs to someone in your position, or whether you will cower as though you are unprotected when you are thoroughly covered. I want you to hear what I am about to say with the full force I intend it. You have backing. Right now, in this exact situation, you have standing. Not after you fix the things that feel broken. Not after a season of proving yourself more reliable. Not after you have been consistent long enough to feel like you have earned the right to call on the backing. Now, you have access. Not to a diminished version of what the kingdom provides, not to the leftover resources after more deserving people have taken what they need. Full access to what the Creator of the universe has made available to those who belong to Him. These are not aspirational statements about a future you are trying to earn your way into. These are factual statements about a present reality that already exists in the structure of your life because of what was done for you and declared over you and sealed over you in the most permanent act ever performed. The question is not whether these things are true. They are true. The question is whether you will begin to live as though they are true, as though the backing is real, as though the standing is present, as though the access is open, as though the door that was opened for you is actually open, and you can actually walk through it right now without waiting for something else to happen first. Consider what changes when you do. When you walk into a difficult situation, a difficult conversation, a difficult relationship, a difficult decision that requires you to take a risk on something uncertain, when you walk in knowing that the full weight of heaven is behind you, not as a lucky charm you rub for comfort, not as a vague theological hope that something good will probably happen eventually, but as a structural reality that changes what resources you actually have available in that room in that moment, the way you carry yourself in that situation changes, not with arrogance. The person who knows their position does not feel the need for arrogance, because arrogance is a compensation for insecurity, and you have no insecurity about your position to compensate for. Not with the kind of pride that comes from thinking you are better than others. With a different quality, a quiet steadiness. The steadiness of someone who knows what they are standing on, and therefore does not need to shout about it. The steadiness of someone who knows whose they are, and therefore does not need other people's confirmation of it. The steadiness that is the natural posture of a person who has stopped trying to secure what was already given. People who know their position do not need to prove it constantly. They carry it the way a person with a certain name carries that name in certain rooms, quietly and without fanfare, but with a settled certainty that when the name is needed, when the door requires the right identification, when the situation calls for the weight that their position carries, the position will hold. Your name in my kingdom is known. It is known by every principality, every power, every force that operates in the visible and invisible created order. You carry my name. Not by your own achievement or virtue. I placed it on you. And that name is above every other name that exists in any realm, which means that everywhere you carry it, you carry something that outranks everything that might try to stand against you. Your inheritance is real. Let me spend time on this because the opposition works hard to make the inheritance feel abstract, theoretical, something that exists somewhere in a distant and uncertain future, so far from your current daily experience that holding on to it feels more like wishful thinking than actual trust. It is a spiritual reality that you are supposed to hold on to, but that never quite connects to the concrete reality of your morning, your finances, your relationships, your health, your sense of direction. Let me push back against that disconnection. Your inheritance is not only a future reality, it is a present one. The resources of the kingdom are available to citizens now, in the current chapter of life, not only in some completed chapter that has not yet been reached. The peace I offer is available now, not after the circumstances improve, not after the anxiety runs its course. Now, even while the circumstances are what they are, and the anxiety is what it is, there is a peace that surpasses the ability of the human analytical mind to produce it, and that peace is yours to access in this specific moment. The access to my presence is available now. The wisdom I provide to those who ask is available now, not at some later date when you are more spiritually developed, but now, in the middle of the confusion, in the middle of the not knowing. The strength that comes from being connected to an infinite source is available now, not after you have rested, not after you have recovered from the difficult season. Now. What does it mean practically that your inheritance is real and present? Here is one practical implication. You are not limited to what you can produce from your own resources. And this matters because your own resources, on their very best day, are finite. Your energy is finite. Your intelligence is finite. Your creativity, though it is genuine and it has its seasons of remarkable output, is finite. Your ability to see all the angles of a complex situation, to anticipate what you cannot see, to navigate what has not yet become visible, is finite. These limitations are not failures of your character. They are simply the nature of being a creature rather than the creator. The creature is bounded. The creator is not. And you are connected, structurally, by your position as my child, to a source that is not bounded. That connection is not some rare mystical experience available only to people of exceptional spiritual achievement. It is the structural reality of your position. You are connected. You have access. The resource is available. Now, some of you are listening to this and something is rising in you that needs to be addressed. A question that is honest and fair and that I want to meet rather than step around. If you have all of this standing and access and backing and resources, why do your circumstances not reflect it? Why does your daily life not feel like the life of someone with the backing of the creator of the universe? Why do the things you are facing feel as heavy as they do, as uncertain as they do, as unresolved as they do, if all of this is structurally available to you? That is a real question, and I am going to give you a real answer. The architecture of your position in me does not mean that your circumstances will always match your standing. The citizens of my kingdom have walked through wilderness. They have sat in darkness for seasons they did not choose and could not understand. They have watched plans they were certain came from me encounter difficulty, delay, disappointment. They have prayed prayers that were met with what felt like silence. They have held on to promises through seasons where the evidence pointed consistently in the opposite direction. This is not a contradiction of what I have told you. It is part of how the building gets built. A building under construction does not yet look like the finished structure. If you were to walk onto a construction site at the right phase of construction, you would see exposed materials, unfinished edges, sections that have been framed but not yet enclosed, areas that look like nothing coherent yet, because the purpose of the elements is not yet visible until more of the structure is complete. It looks like incompletion. It looks like disorder. It can, to an untrained eye, look like disaster. But the architect knows the plans. The architect knows which phase of construction this is. The architect knows why the scaffolding is where it is, what it is there to support while something else is being built, when it will be removed, and what will be standing where it stood. And the building under construction, no matter how unfinished it looks, has a foundation that was there before anything else was erected and will remain after the scaffolding is gone and the work is complete. If you are in a season where the construction is visible, where the unfinished edges are apparent to you and to people around you, where the shape of what is being built is not yet clear, and the gap between what you hope to be by now and what you can actually see is discouraging, I am asking you to trust the architect. I know the plans. I drew the plans. I have not lost track of the plans in the confusion of the construction phase. I know which elements are being developed in you right now that will be essential to what comes later. I know which walls are going up this season that will provide the structure for the rooms that come in the next one. I know what the finished building looks like, and I am working toward that vision with complete confidence in the outcome, even in the phases that look most uncertain from inside them. This is part of your inheritance, the hardest part. The part that does not feel like inheritance because it does not feel like receiving anything good. But the journey toward what I have for you is shaped by me with the same love as the destination itself. Every section of the road is designed, and every section serves the whole. I am not being careless with your in-between seasons. I am not distracted during the difficult chapters, letting you manage alone while I am occupied with something more interesting. The difficult chapters are chapters of construction. They are important chapters. They are chapters I am present in at least as fully as the ones that feel better, often more so, because the important work frequently happens in the places where you cannot see clearly what is being built. Stand in the inheritance even when it does not yet look like what you imagined. Stand in the position, even when the circumstances argue against it. Stand in the standing, not because the feelings confirm it, but because the one who granted it never rescinds what he has given. Let me offer you something practical for the moments when standing feels impossible, because I am not calling you to a theoretical faith that exists only in good moments. The moments when standing feels impossible are the exact moments the standing matters most, and they are the moments that need the most specific support. So here is what I want you to do in those moments. Not a technique, a return. Return to the most basic thing, not to a complex theological argument for why you should feel better. To the most foundational thing you know. I am. Not I am all of the things you need me to be right now, though that is also true. Not I am solving your problem in ways you can see, though sometimes I am. Simply, I am. The ground of existence itself. The one who is before anything else is. The one whose existence predates and underlies every circumstance that feels overwhelming. Return to that. Put your weight there. Not because returning to it will immediately make the circumstances feel different, but because the circumstances sit inside a reality that I am, and that reality is more fundamental than any circumstance within it. From that foundation, from the simple and absolute bedrock of my existence and your belonging to me, everything else can be approached again. Not necessarily with ease, not necessarily with confidence that looks the way confidence usually looks, but with the steadiness of someone who has found the thing that cannot be moved and is pressing their weight into it. The other things can be uncertain. This one thing cannot be. And when you are standing on the one thing that cannot be uncertain, you can bear the uncertainty of everything else. This is the practical practice of what I have been describing. It is not always dramatic. It is often quiet. It is the daily return, sometimes multiple times in a single day, to the reality of your position. The quiet reminder when the anxiety is rising, I know whose I am. The brief reorientation when the fear is speaking loudly, the one who made me is with me. The simple act of pressing your metaphorical feet into the metaphorical ground and feeling what is underneath. Still there, still solid, still yours, still speaking the same declaration it has been speaking since before you needed it. That practice, repeated consistently, is what moves the truth of your position from something you know to something you live. And living it is the goal, not knowing it, living it. From the foundation up, there is a question about fear that I need to address, because fear has been speaking to you, and I want to respond to what it has been saying. When fear arrives and takes up residence in your mind without your explicit permission, it comes with credentials. It presents evidence. It cites your history. It assembles your anxieties into a coherent argument that arrives not as a feeling, but as a logical case. It says things like, look at the pattern. Look at how many times this has not worked. Look at what is reasonable to expect given everything that has already happened. Look at the resources available to you and tell me honestly if they are sufficient for what you are facing. Fear is not stupid. It is strategic. It picks the most accurate possible representation of your visible reality and uses it as the foundation for a conclusion about your invisible reality. The conclusion that you are alone with this, that no sufficient help is coming, that the outcome is determined by what you can see and manage and produce on your own. That conclusion is wrong, not because fear is misreading the visible reality. The visible reality may be exactly as challenging as fear is presenting it, but because fear cannot see what I see. Fear is bounded by the visible and the calculable and the probable, the world that can be measured by human instruments and assessed by human intelligence. I am bounded by none of those things. I have access to resources that do not appear in any human accounting. I have the ability to change what is probable. I have the capacity to route around what looks like an impassable obstacle from within the system. Because I am not within the system, I made the system. And the maker of a system has access to dimensions of it that no element within it can see. I have already done things for you that you did not fully recognize as my specific intervention. Things that looked like coincidence or luck or fortunate timing that were not any of those things but were me, working in the space between what is visible and what is possible. Your position grants you access to a different set of probabilities than the ones fear is presenting. Not because I suspend the rules of the created order arbitrarily whenever the people I love are in distress, but because the rules of the created order were written by me and are far more flexible and far more expansive and far more open to my participation than the materialist imagination allows for. Things that look impossible from within the visible, physical, measurable world are not impossible from the perspective of the one who spoke that world into existence and holds it in continued being by his ongoing creative activity. I have worked with harder situations than whatever you are looking at right now, and my investment in what I have declared over your life is not the kind of investment I abandon when the project runs into difficulty. So when fear says, "This cannot change," your answer, drawn from the reality of your position, is that you have never lived exclusively under the jurisdiction of what can be calculated by what is visible. You are my child. You live in a larger reality than the one fear can see. And what that means for the thing you are most afraid of is that its most terrifying projected outcome is not the only possibility that exists for you. There's another category of outcome, one that fear cannot calculate, that belongs to the jurisdiction of the one who holds your life and who has declared things over it that fear has no access to. That inheritance is yours. Stand in it. Draw on it. Not at some future moment when your faith feels stronger. Now, from where you are, with what you have, under the full covering of the position that was given to you and cannot be taken. Now I want to show you something about the battle that surrounds your life, because I do not want you walking forward with a misunderstanding about the nature of what you face. Some of what I say here will surprise you. Some of it will bring relief that you have not expected, a particular kind of relief that comes not from circumstances improving, but from understanding them differently. All of it is true, and all of it changes the way you move through the world if you take it seriously and let it become the framework through which you interpret what you experience. The battle is real. Let me be clear about that first, because I have no interest in minimizing what you have experienced or making you feel that the difficulty of your life reflects a weakness in your perception rather than a genuine reality in the world. There are forces that work against the plans I have for my children. There is opposition to the life I designed for you, specific and intentional opposition, not random difficulty, but resistance that has direction. Things that should be open have been closed. Paths that should have been clear have been obscured. Relationships that should have flourished have been damaged, sometimes from the outside and sometimes from the inside, and sometimes by a combination of both. Seasons that should have been fruitful have been dry, not from your lack of effort, but from something pressing against the fruitfulness that was meant to be there. You have not been imagining the resistance. It is there. It has had direction, and it has caused real damage that I do not minimize. But here is what I need you to understand about the nature of that opposition, and this is where the relief lives if you can receive it fully. The opposition is not working on even terms with me. This is the misunderstanding I most want to correct, because it shapes everything about how you engage with the difficulty in your life. The picture many of my children carry is something like two armies on a battlefield, roughly matched, fighting over their lives with an uncertain outcome that depends on the strength and persistence of each side. A battle where the result is genuinely unknown until it is over. A battle where the wrong side winning is a real and present possibility. That picture is not accurate. The opposition that works against your life does not operate at anything approaching my level of power or authority. The gap between the power of what stands against you and the power of the one who stands for you is not a matter of degree. It is categorical. It is like comparing the ability of a shadow to obstruct the sun. The shadow is real. The shadow has effects in the space it occupies. Standing in a shadow is a different experience than standing in direct light. But the shadow has no power over the sun. It cannot dim the sun. It cannot stop the sun from rising. Its existence is entirely dependent on the light it is attempting to block. And when the angle changes or the light source moves, the shadow disappears. The opposition against your life is real. But it is a shadow, not a sun. And the sun that gives me my light is not something that shadows can negotiate with. The battle you are in the middle of was decided before you entered it. This is the part that transforms how you fight if you can receive it. The final outcome was settled not by anything that has happened in your lifetime or in recorded human history, but by something that happened at a specific point in history that established the permanent defeat of everything that stands against my purposes. The cross was not a moment of apparent defeat that I heroically recovered from over the following 3 days. From eternity's vantage point, from the perspective of the one who exists outside of time looking into it, the cross was a moment of ultimate and decisive victory. It looked, from inside the experience of those hours, like everything was ending. Like the story had reached its final chapter in the worst possible way. But what appeared to be an ending was actually the sealing of a verdict that had been written before creation began. The victory was accomplished. The defeat of everything that stands against my children's full inheritance was accomplished. Not provisionally, not subject to appeal. Accomplished. Everything since then has been the outworking of that victory in time, including what you are walking through right now, including the specific difficulty you are carrying, including the specific opposition that has been pressing against the specific things I have been building in your life. All of it is taking place in the aftermath of a decisive victory, not in the uncertainty of an ongoing contest with an unknown outcome. So what does it mean to live in the aftermath of a decisive victory? It does not mean the fighting has stopped. Soldiers know that even after a battle has been won, there is a period of clearing the field, of establishing control over territory, of processing what happened, and moving it from the chaos of combat toward the order of what comes after. That work is real. It can be dangerous. It requires engagement and attention and courage. But the soldier who does that work knows something the soldier in the middle of the deciding battle did not know. The soldier clearing the field after the victory knows how the story ends. The soldier knows that what they are doing is not deciding the outcome. It is manifesting a victory that has already been declared, and that changes the soldier's posture completely. Not less vigilant, not less courageous, but differently oriented, working from a settled confidence about the ultimate outcome rather than from the desperate effort of someone whose survival depends on the results of the next engagement. That is the nature of your engagement with the opposition in your life. You are manifesting a victory that has already been declared. You are clearing territory in the aftermath of a decisive win. You are walking on ground that has already been secured at the highest possible level. And every act of faithfulness, every refusal to give up, every choice to get back up after a fall, every prayer offered in the dark when nothing visible confirms that it is heard, is not determining whether my side wins. My side has already won. What you are doing is participating in the visible manifestation of what was accomplished at the invisible level, bringing the eternal reality into the temporal experience, step by step, choice by choice, day by day. This changes everything about your posture in the fight. When you know you are on the winning side of a battle that is already decided, you do not engage with every provocation from a place of desperate defensive scrambling. You can engage from a place of settled certainty about where this is going. You can face a difficult day and know that the difficult day is not evidence of the wrong side gaining ground. You can face a season that looks like defeat and know that what looks like defeat from inside time looked like defeat at the cross too, and what happened after the cross. The pattern of apparent defeat giving way to actual victory is written into the structure of the story I am telling, and your story participates in that structure. Let me show you something about that armor Paul described to the community in Ephesus, because I want you to understand it not as a list of spiritual equipment you are supposed to have assembled before you are ready to engage, but as a description of how you are covered, how you are protected, how the position you stand in provides for you in the middle of the fight. Notice what the armor covers: a breastplate that protects the heart and the vital organs, the core of your physical life; a helmet that protects the mind, the place where the fight is most often waged, because the mind is where the opposition works hardest to establish its false claims about your position and your prospects; a belt that holds everything together at the center, because a soldier whose equipment is not properly secured cannot function effectively no matter how good the equipment is; shoes that give stability and traction, the kind that let you hold your ground when something is pressing against you, that keep you from slipping when the ground beneath you feels uncertain; a shield that is not fixed in place but can move, can be repositioned to meet whatever is coming, because protection has to be dynamic to be effective; and the word itself, the truth that speaks into the false narratives being constructed around your life, that cuts through the layers of deception to the actual reality underneath. Notice the emphasis in the text. The repeated instruction is not to advance, not to charge, not to conquer new territory through aggressive action. The instruction is to stand. Having done everything, stand. Stand firm. Stand your ground. The posture being called for is one of holding what has already been secured, not scrambling to take something that has not yet been given. You are being called to stand on ground that belongs to you, because it was given to you, because it was purchased for you, because the one who purchased it placed you on it and covered it with his own authority. Standing is not passive. Holding the ground against what would displace you requires everything you have. But it is fundamentally different from fighting from desperation, because you are not fighting to secure something uncertain. You are maintaining something given. Now let me address the specific ways the opposition comes against your life, because it is strategic, and understanding the strategy helps you hold your ground more effectively. Not through any power of your own, but because knowing what is being attempted is the first step in recognizing it when it arrives. The attack on your peace is one of the most consistent and most effective tactics. When anxiety arrives and will not leave, When worry establishes residence in your mind without asking permission, when you cannot seem to turn down the volume on the thoughts that run the worst possible versions of your future on repeat, that is not simply a mental or emotional experience disconnected from the spiritual reality of your life. It is connected. It is an attempt to get you to forget your position, to experience your circumstances as though you were alone in them, as though no help was coming, as though the outcome depended entirely on your ability to manage the variables by force of will and intelligence. If you forget your position, if you forget who stands behind you and what resources are available to you, you will manage anxiety the way someone manages it, who genuinely has no backing, with sheer effort, with desperate mental control, with the exhausting attempt to keep all of the worst possible outcomes from materializing through the force of your vigilance. But you are not without backing. You are not managing this alone. The peace available to you is not the peace of having everything under control. It is the peace of knowing who holds everything you cannot control. And that peace is available even when the circumstances are exactly as difficult as they are, even when the anxious thoughts are exactly as loud as they are, because peace of this kind does not require the removal of the difficulty in order to exist. It coexists with difficulty. It is the structural reality of knowing your position asserting itself against the experiential noise of the circumstances, the attack on your relationships. When the people closest to you become the source of the deepest pain, when the connections you counted on most reveal a limited capacity to hold what you needed them to hold. When the relational landscape of your life goes through seasons that leave you feeling more alone than you expected, the damage is real. I meet it as real. I do not minimize relational pain by pointing to a spiritual reality that floats above it. The pain of relational damage is as real as any other kind of pain, and it is one of the most enduring. But within that reality, I want to offer you something. No human relationship was ever meant to be the foundation of your identity. Not one. The most beautiful, most faithful, most loving human relationship in your life, even at its very best, is not the foundation. It is a floor. It rests on something below it. And when a floor gives way, as floors can, you fall to the level of the floor below. But the foundation holds. The wound of a relational loss, however severe, cannot reach the foundation. It cannot reach the core of who you are and what you are worth and whose you are, because that foundation is not held in any human relationship. It is held by me, and I am not subject to the kinds of failures that human relationships, even beautiful ones, are subject to. The attack on your sense of direction. When the path ahead looks unclear, when you are not sure you are in the right place, doing the right thing, moving in the right direction, when the confidence you had about your calling or your purpose encounters enough disruption that you begin to wonder whether you had it right to begin with. That uncertainty is a genuine form of suffering. Not knowing where you are going is disorienting. Not having confidence in your direction makes every step feel tentative and every decision feel high stakes. But here is what I want to say to you in the middle of that uncertainty. You are not navigating by what you can see. You are navigating in relationship with the one who can see everything. And navigation in relationship is different from navigation alone. When you are walking with me, not knowing the destination in your own mind does not mean the destination is unknown. It means you are trusting the guide rather than the map. And the guide who walks with you has never made a wrong turn, has never brought someone to a destination other than the one that was right for them, has never abandoned a child in the middle of the road because the road got complicated. The ground of your specific calling, your specific purpose, the specific reason you are here on this earth at this particular time, in this particular body, with this particular history, that ground is not uncertain to me. I drew the plans. I know what they are. And my commitment to bringing you to the fulfillment of those plans is not diminished by the fact that you cannot see them clearly from where you are standing. Architects do not require the building to understand the plans. They require the building to be made of the right material. You are made of the right material. The plans are not in question. The builder knows the plans and continues to build. Every choice you make from the position of trust, from the place of moving forward even when the forward is not fully visible, is a brick placed in the structure of experiential faith. Not the faith that comes from reading about what others have experienced, though that matters. The faith that comes from your own history with me, the particular irreducible evidence of your own walking with me through seasons where you could not see what was ahead and arriving at the other side of those seasons, to find that I was there before you the whole time. That evidence is building, even when it does not feel like it is building, even when you are in the middle of a section that is being added to the structure in a way you cannot perceive yet. The building is happening. And what is being built is a relationship with me that is more real, more proven, more solid than any theoretical understanding of my character could be, because it has been tested in your specific life, under your specific conditions, with your specific history and your specific weaknesses and your specific particular way of doubting and your specific particular way of trusting, and it is held. The ground is secured. You stand on it as someone who has been placed there by the one who secured it. Every step you take from there, you take on territory that was given and covered. Not territory you are capturing through your own effort, but territory you are inhabiting through your position. Walk in it. Hold it. Let the security of it change the quality of your engagement with everything that tries to push you off it. Because what you stand on does not move, and the one who placed you on it is not finished building. Now I want to talk about what courage actually looks like when it is rooted in something real. Not the courage of the performance, not the courage that is assembled and maintained by willpower and then collapses when willpower runs out, but the kind that grows from the inside out, from the deep place where the foundation is, from the knowledge of what you stand on and what stands with you. There is a version of courage that the world celebrates that is really a form of sophisticated pretending. The kind that never admits weakness, never acknowledges uncertainty, pushes through difficulty by sheer force of will, and presents a confident exterior, while the interior is quietly fracturing under the strain of maintaining the presentation. The kind that wears the mask long enough that even the person wearing it begins to forget it is a mask, begins to identify with the performance, begins to feel that admitting the trembling underneath would mean the whole carefully maintained structure of competence and reliability would come apart. That kind of courage is not what I am describing. That kind of courage eventually runs out because it is powered by nothing more than the human will's determination not to appear afraid. And the human will, however admirable its determination, is a finite resource. It runs low. It runs out. And when it does, the person discovers that the foundation was performance, and performance without a foundation underneath it cannot hold indefinitely. The courage I am building in you is made of different material. Not the absence of fear, because the absence of fear is not courage. It is either the absence of understanding or the absence of feeling, and neither of those is what I am after. Not the suppression of uncertainty, because suppressing uncertainty does not resolve it. It just pushes it down where it builds pressure. The courage I am building in you is the presence of something underneath the fear that is greater than the fear. The foundation speaking louder than the shaking. The identity holding firm when the circumstances are pressing in from every side. Courage not as a performance of strength, but as a natural consequence of knowing. As the thing that happens when what you know about your position is louder in your experience than what you feel about your circumstances. Paul asked something that I want to dwell on with you, because the question is not rhetorical. It is logical. It follows from a premise and arrives at a conclusion. The premise is that I am for you, fully, completely, actively, with all of my resources and all of my attention and all of my commitment and all of my power for you. Not occasionally, not under certain conditions, not when you have performed well enough to merit my support. For you. And then the question, if that is the premise, if the creator and sustainer of all that exists is fully for you, who can successfully stand against you? Who in the created order operates at a power level sufficient to overcome what I provide? The answer the logic demands is that there is no such who, no such thing. No collection of circumstances or forces or powers or adversities that exceeds the capacity of the one who is for you to address on your behalf. This is not a comfort offered to make you feel better in a moment of distress. It is a structural truth about the nature of power and authority in the created order. The forces that stand against you are real, but they are created forces. They are contained within the created order. They are bounded by the physics and the rules and the authorities of the world that was made. And everything within the created order operates under the ultimate authority of the one who made it. Nothing in the created order can stand successfully against the purposes of the one who made the order, including whatever is standing against you right now. I want you to feel the weight of that. Not the abstract theological weight, but the personal weight. Whatever is pressing against the specific thing you are trying to build. Whatever is opposing the specific relationship you are trying to restore. Whatever is blocking the specific path you are trying to walk. Whatever is working against the specific well-being of the specific people you love. All of it is a created thing operating under my ultimate authority. And I am for you. Now here's where I want to address something directly, because I know the question that arises when I say this. The question is, if all of this is true, then why does it sometimes feel like the opposition is winning? Why do circumstances sometimes resolve in ways that do not look like what a victory-backed person should experience? Why do prayers that align with what seem like good and faithful things not always receive the answers that a prayer backed by the Creator of the universe should receive? That is a real question, and it deserves a real answer, not a theological deflection. The victory I am describing is not visible in every individual circumstance as a favorable outcome on the timeline you expected. That is not what I promised. What I promised is that I am working all things together for good for those who love me and are called according to my purpose. Notice what that says. Working all things, not some things. Not the things that look like they should produce good. All things. Which means the things that look like setbacks are included. The closed doors are included. The prayers that received an answer you did not expect and did not want are included. The losses are included. The seasons of silence when it seemed like I was not paying attention are included. All of it is in the working. All of it is being used toward an outcome that, from where you stand right now, you cannot see fully. But from where I stand, the outcome is clear, and it is good, and your involvement in it is certain, and your arrival at it is assured. The courage I am equipping you with is the courage to live inside that working, inside the process, inside the season where the outcome is not yet visible but the outcome is not in question. The courage to take the next step on a path you cannot fully see, not because you have figured out the complete route, but because you know the guide and you know the guide's track record, and you know the guide's love for you is not a reason for uncertainty. Consider what this courage looks like in the ordinary texture of daily life, because the kingdom does not play out only in dramatic moments. Most of your life is ordinary moments, a conversation over something trivial that becomes something important, a small decision that turns out to have larger implications than it appeared, the daily rhythms that feel unremarkable but are actually the substance of what your life is made of. Ordinary moments, endured, engaged, met with what you know about your position rather than what you feel about your circumstances, are where the building of a faith life actually happens. Not in the spectacular crisis moments, but in the thousands small moments of choosing to keep going. Consider the way you enter a difficult conversation. There is a conversation you need to have, perhaps one you have been avoiding, perhaps one that involves saying something true in a place where truth is not comfortable, or establishing a boundary in a relationship where boundaries have not existed, or admitting something you have been protecting yourself from admitting. The courage to have that conversation, the real courage that is steady rather than aggressive, honest rather than unkind, comes from a specific place. It comes from knowing that your worth does not depend on the outcome of the conversation, from knowing that if the other person responds badly, if the conversation goes worse than you hoped, if the short-term result is disruption rather than resolution, your position is not changed by that. Your foundation is not affected by that. You can afford to be honest because you have nothing essential at risk. The things that are most truly yours cannot be taken by a difficult conversation. That security, grounded not in your ability to control the other person's response, but in your knowledge of your position, is what makes genuinely honest engagement possible. Consider the risk of trying something new, stepping toward the thing you have been called toward, but have been circling without quite committing to, because the possibility of failure feels like more than you can afford. I want to say something about the relationship between failure and your position. The person who knows their position can afford to fail, not because failure does not hurt, it does. Not because failure does not cost something real, it does. Not because the consequences of failure are always manageable. Sometimes they are not. But because failure does not change the foundation. Failure does not revoke the citizenship. Failure does not reach the level of what actually determines your worth and your standing. Failure can damage floors. It cannot touch the foundation. And when failure is not an existential threat to the thing that matters most, you can take risks. You can attempt things that might not work. You can try and fall short and try again. The willingness to try again is itself a form of courage, one that is built on the knowledge that what you are standing on does not require you to be perfect to keep standing on it. Consider the way you hold your own history. The particular version of your history that you carry with you, the one that plays in your own mind, is shaped by what you have decided the history means. Most people carry a version of their history that has already been given a verdict, a conclusion about what the events prove about who the person is. The version that says, look at the pattern, look at the recurring themes, look at what keeps happening. This is the evidence about what I am. And the verdict the history delivers is often harsher than anything I would say about the same events. You are harder on yourself than I am. The judge in your own mind applies a stricter standard than I apply. And the verdict your internal judge hands down shapes how you move into the future. What if the verdict were different? Not because the facts are different. The same events happened. But because the interpretation is different. Because the meaning assigned to the events changes when they are placed in a different framework. Your history, interpreted from inside the reality of your position in me, does not produce the verdict of deficiency or consistent failure. It produces the testimony of a building under construction. It produces the evidence of a person who has kept going through things that were genuinely hard. It produces the record of someone who has been carried through what they could not carry themselves, who has found resources in difficult moments that were not of their own provision, who has arrived at other sides of seasons they were not sure they would survive. That is what your history is when you read it from inside the truth of what you are standing on. Not a verdict, a testimony. Now I want to speak to the days ahead. Not in general terms, but with the specific directness of someone who knows what you are walking into and wants you to be ready. The things that are coming toward you, the challenges and the opportunities and the situations you cannot currently anticipate, they are coming toward someone who has been prepared for them. Not prepared in the sense of having everything figured out. Prepared in the sense of having been built, specifically, for the specific life you are going to live. Every difficulty you have walked through that felt like it was only destroying has been building something. The endurance that was developed in seasons you would not have chosen is load-bearing material for what comes next. The compassion that grew from knowing your own need is structural material for what you are being sent to do. The wisdom that came in the quiet seasons, slowly, painfully, by elimination rather than by sudden clarity, that wisdom is more reliable than the kind that arrives quickly. It has been tested against your actual life. It holds up. You are more prepared than you know. Not in the way that produces overconfidence, but in the way that produces the right kind of settled readiness. The kind that does not require you to feel ready in order to move. The kind that allows you to take the next step even before the step after it is clear, because the steps have been prepared before you take them. The paths I set before my children are not paths I send them on alone. I go ahead. I clear the specific obstacles that need to be cleared. I leave the ones that are part of the formation, the ones that will build something in you that nothing easier could build. I am in the path before you are. And when you get to where I already am, you will find me there. Already present, already working, not surprised by your arrival, but waiting for it. So step forward. Not because everything is clear, not because the risk feels manageable, not because you have finally reached a point of confidence that feels sustainable. Step forward because you know what you are standing on, and what you are standing on does not require you to be confident in yourself before it bears your weight. It holds because of what it is, not because of what you feel about it. There is one more dimension of this courage I want to name before we move to the declaration that everything has been building toward. It is the courage of receiving. Because you would think that receiving, accepting what is given, opening your hands, saying yes to what is offered, would be the easy part. But for many of my children, receiving is among the most difficult acts of courage they are ever called to. Receiving requires vulnerability. It requires the acknowledgement that you have a need. It requires the admission that what you have been offered is something you could not produce for yourself. And it requires trust. Trust that the one offering is genuinely offering what they say they are offering, that the gift does not come with a hidden cost, that the love is not conditional, that the acceptance will not be followed by disappointment when the giver discovers that you needed it as much as you did. Many of you have been burned by generosity that turned out to be conditional, by love that was offered with an invisible invoice attached, by people who gave and then used the giving as leverage, or who withdrew what they gave when the relationship went in a direction they did not prefer. And that history makes receiving difficult. It teaches you that the open hand is dangerous, that it is safer to provide for yourself and remain independent and not create the vulnerability that accepting from someone else creates. But I am not those people. I am not the sources that burned you. My generosity does not come with an invoice. My love does not come with conditions attached. What I have given you in your identity and your position and your standing and your inheritance, I gave it fully, without taking it back, without attaching to it the expectation that you would be worthy of it in ways that required your ongoing performance. It was a gift, genuine gift, and your receiving of it does not create a debt. It creates a response, yes, the response of a child who is loved and knows it and lives in the knowledge of it. But that response flows freely from the love, not as an obligation generated by the gift. So receive it. Whatever you have been holding back from receiving, the love that seemed too large, the grace that seemed too free, the position that seemed too good for someone with your specific history, the promises that seemed too high for someone at your specific level of faith. Receive it. Not because you have finally become worthy of it. You were never the determining factor of your worthiness. The determining factor was my love for you, and that has not changed. But I am not finished. What I am about to say next takes everything we have built here and raises it. Because there is something I want to declare over you, and I have been building toward it for this entire conversation, and I want you to receive it not as a general word for anyone who happens to be listening, but as a specific word spoken from the one who made you directly to the one who is carrying your life right now, in this exact moment with all of its exact weight. Let me go further with you now, into a territory that I have not yet named, but that you have been living in for longer than you may realize. It is the territory of identity under pressure, because identity is easy to hold when the conditions are favorable. When things are going well, when people around you are affirming, when the plans you made are working out close to the way you envisioned, when you can look at the evidence of your life and feel reasonably good about what it shows, holding on to who you are is not particularly difficult. The challenge does not live there. The challenge lives in what happens to your sense of self when the pressure comes, when the favorable conditions give way to unfavorable ones, when the people who are affirming stop affirming or become the source of difficulty, when the plans stop working, when the evidence you are relying on to feel good about yourself is taken away or begins to point in an uncomfortable direction. What happens to you under that pressure is what reveals what the identity was actually built on. Not what you believed about yourself in the easy seasons, but what you know about yourself when nothing external is confirming it. Not what you were capable of when things were supporting your efforts, but who you are when the support is removed. And this is where many of my children discover that the identity they were relying on was more conditional than they realized, that it was assembled from external sources, that when the external sources changed, the identity began to feel uncertain, not because the person changed, because the foundation of the identity turned out to be in things that could change. I am not the God of the easy seasons only. I am the God of the pressure. I am the God of the moment when you do not know who you are without the confirmation that used to provide it. I am the God who says, now that everything else has been removed, let me show you what is still there. Let me show you what was always there. Let me show you the identity that was established before any of the external sources existed. The identity that will remain when all of them are gone. The identity that does not require the environment to confirm it because it was not put there by the environment. This is a gift. I know it does not always feel like a gift. Seasons of pressure rarely feel like gifts while they are happening. The removal of external confirmation feels like loss. The stripping away of what you are relying on feels like impoverishment. But what is being revealed is more valuable than what was removed. What you find in the pressure, when everything you constructed from external sources has been temporarily taken away, and you discover that there is still something there, something that holds, something that does not collapse even when the support structures around it do. That is the real thing. That is the foundation showing itself. That is your identity in me. Placed there before you had the capacity to assemble it yourself, holding when everything you assembled yourself is being tested. Some of you are in exactly that season right now. The season of stripping. The season where things that used to provide identity and stability and confirmation are not providing them in the same way they used to. And it is uncomfortable. It is more than uncomfortable. It is disorienting in a way that affects how you function, how you sleep, how you carry yourself through the day, how you interact with people who seem to have their footing in places where you are struggling to find yours. Stay in this. Not because I am callous about what it costs you, but because what is happening in you during the season is not what it feels like. It does not feel like a gift. It is a gift. The gift of discovering what was always true about you, underneath all of the assembled layers. The gift of finding out that the thing underneath holds, that you are not nothing without the external confirmation, that you were something before the external sources said you were something, that the identity I placed in you was real before the world had a chance to either confirm or deny it. Let me address the question of what you do with the pain that comes in these seasons. Because pain is not something to dismiss or bypass or spiritualize into something that does not feel like it. The pain of the stripping seasons is real. The disorientation is real. The grief of losing things you relied on, even things you should not have relied on as much as you did, is real, and it deserves to be honored as real. I am not asking you to perform cheerfulness in the face of genuine difficulty. I am asking you to hold something underneath the pain that does not eliminate the pain but keeps the pain from becoming the final word. The final word is not pain. The final word is not the difficulty of the season. The final word is not the confusion of the disoriented person who cannot quite find their footing yet. The final word belongs to me, and the final word I speak over your life is not diminishment. It is not loss. It is not the story of someone who ran out of foundation. It is the story of someone who discovered, under pressure, that the foundation was there, has always been there, will be there regardless of what seasons come and go, will be there regardless of what external sources confirm or deny. The final word I speak over you is the word I spoke when I first thought of you, before you existed, before you could do anything to merit it or fail to merit it, the word of my love and my choosing, and my particular, individual, personal commitment to your flourishing. That word has not changed. It will not change. And in the seasons when everything else is changing, it is the word to return to. There is something underneath what I have already addressed, something structural in a different way that I want to explore with you now. There is a connection between who you know yourself to be and how you treat others, between the security of your identity and the generosity of your engagement with the people around you, between the stability of your foundation and your capacity to genuinely love, not as an act of will that you force against your instincts, but as an overflow of something that is actually present in you in abundance. People who are insecure about their own foundation are, understandably, focused on their own survival. When you are scrambling to secure what you are not sure is secure, when you are working constantly to confirm what you are not certain of, when every interaction is evaluated at least in part through the lens of whether it helped or hurt your standing, your ability to turn fully outward, to attend genuinely to someone else's need without simultaneously managing your own, is limited. Not because you are selfish, because you are surviving. You are using the available bandwidth for self-preservation, and there is less available for other focused attention. A person who knows their position, who rests in the security of a foundation that does not require constant maintenance and confirmation, has capacity freed up. Not because they have become less human or less needy in any of the ordinary human ways, but because the deepest need, the need for their worth and their standing to be secured, has been met at a level that does not require constant daily renewal. And when that need is met at the foundation level, there is more available for everything above it. For listening without calculating, for serving without keeping track, for loving in the ways that actually cost something without a corresponding drain that makes the loving feel depleting. This is part of what I am building toward in you. Not just your own stability, your capacity, the capacity that comes from stability, the ability to enter other people's lives not from a place of deficit, not grasping, not taking, not needing to be confirmed by every interaction, but from a place of genuine overflow. Because what I have placed in you, the love and the worth and the identity and the belonging, is not a limited supply. It is a well that connects to an infinite source. And a well connected to an infinite source does not run dry from being drawn from. It is designed to be drawn from. The drawing is not depletion. The drawing is the purpose. Think about what that means for your relationships going forward. The relationships where you have historically given from deficit, where you were trying to get something from the relationship that a relationship was never designed to provide. The fundamental confirmation of your worth. Those relationships will change when your foundation changes. Not because the other people change, though they may. Because you change. Because you come to the relationship from a different place. From a place where you are not needing the relationship to do the one thing it was never capable of doing. And being freed from that need changes everything about how you show up. It changes what you bring. It changes what you ask for. It changes what you are able to give. Some of your relationships are going to become healthier as you settle into the reality of your position, not because of anything you do programmatically, but because the quality of your presence changes when you are present from security rather than from need. When you are genuinely curious about the other person, rather than primarily monitoring whether they are providing you with what you need from them. When you are able to be glad for their good things without filtering it through how their good things compare to your things. When you are able to be present to their pain without needing them to be okay in order for you to be okay. That kind of presence is a gift. It is rare, and it becomes possible when your own foundation is secure. Go into your relationships with the awareness of this, with the intention of bringing what your position provides, rather than asking the relationship to provide what only your position can, not as a strategy, not as a technique for improving your social dynamics, but as the genuine overflow of someone who has found the well and is learning to draw from it, and therefore has something real to offer from it. Let me return now to the specific situation you are facing, the one that brought you here. Whatever it was that drew you to listen to these words today, whatever the particular weight of this particular season, I want to close with something personal. Something not about the general architecture of your faith, but about the specific you in the specific moment you are in. I know this season. I know what it is asking of you. I know the specific texture of what you are carrying right now, the way it feels at different moments of the day, heavier in some moments and slightly more manageable in others. I know what you are hoping for. I know what you are afraid of. I know the question you have not yet put into words, even to yourself, the one that is living underneath all of the other questions. I know it, and I want you to know that I am not distant from it. I am not managing your situation from a remove, from a place of general intention toward your well-being, but without specific attention to the specific details. I am paying attention to the specific details, all of them. Every one of them matters to me because you matter to me, not as a category, but as this particular person, with this particular life, in this particular moment. And what I want to say about this specific moment is that you are not alone in it. That help is present in it, not on its way, present. That the resources available to you in it are greater than the weight of it. That the one who designed you for your specific life has not lost sight of where you are in it. That the path through this specific difficulty has been prepared. That on the other side of this specific season, there are things I have been building toward that this season is part of the preparation for. Not as a consolation, as a statement of the actual structure of what is happening. This is a chapter, not the final chapter. A chapter in the middle of a story that I'm writing with you and for you, and that ends in a place that, when you finally see it, will make complete and beautiful sense of every chapter that came before it. Trust me in this chapter. Not because the chapter is comfortable, because you know the author, because the author has not made a chapter yet that did not serve the story. Because the author loves the story and loves the character in it, and is writing toward an ending that the character cannot yet see, but that the author has been working toward with complete commitment from the very first word. I am with you. Every chapter, every word, every step of the way until the story is complete. And the story will be complete in the fullness of the time I set for it, and it will be beautiful. Let me address one more thing before I close. Because I have spoken about what you have and what you stand on and what cannot be taken from you. But I also want to speak about what you have to give, about the specific contribution that you, in your specific position in this specific chapter of history, are meant to make. You are not here by accident. The time you live in was chosen for you. The community you inhabit, the relationships you are embedded in, the sphere of influence that is uniquely yours because it has been built from the specific combination of your history and your gifts, and your personality and your position. None of that is arbitrary. You were placed here, in this time, in this place, among these specific people, for reasons that are part of the larger plan. And the contribution you are meant to make is not a contribution that anyone else can make, because no one else has your particular combination of who you are and where you are, and what you have been through and what you know because of it. The fear that you have nothing to offer, that what you have to give is not worth offering, that you do not have enough or know enough or have achieved enough to be someone whose contribution matters. That fear is a misunderstanding of how contributions work in the economy of my kingdom. In my economy, the contribution that matters is not always the one that looks largest from the outside. It is the faithful, small, consistent, genuine contribution of someone who is fully present in their specific place, giving what they specifically have, loving the specific people in front of them. That is what moves things in my kingdom. Not the spectacular, but the faithful. Not the impressive, but the genuine. Not the contribution that earns recognition, but the one that comes from knowing who you are and having enough of it to give. You have enough, because what you have connects to a source that does not run out, and the offering of what you have, from that connected place, from the position of the one who knows their standing and rests in it and lets the rest overflow, is more than enough for the specific contribution you are placed in this moment to make. Now you are sent, carrying who you are, knowing whose you are, standing on what cannot be moved, going into what comes next as the person I made you to be, not perfectly, not without the ongoing need for my help and my guidance and my correction and my grace, but genuinely, really, as yourself, the one I designed, the one I love, the one I have not given up on for even a fraction of a moment since the moment I first thought of you. Go, the road is prepared, I am in it, and you, my courageous one, are exactly who you were always meant to be. There is something about waiting that I want to address directly, because waiting is one of the most challenging aspects of living the life I have called you to, and it is almost never discussed with the honesty it deserves. Most treatments of waiting in spiritual contexts default quickly to encouragement. Hold on. Your time is coming. Do not give up. These things are true. They are not wrong. But they are not sufficient for what the actual experience of waiting feels like from the inside. And you deserve something more substantial than comfort that asks you to feel better without acknowledging how hard the thing you are waiting in actually is. Waiting feels like being stopped. Like everyone else is moving and you are somehow suspended in a place where the movement you expected is not happening. Like watching from a window while life happens on the other side of the glass. Like being in the middle of a sentence that never completes, the pause stretching so long that you begin to wonder whether the rest of the sentence is actually coming or whether this is simply where the sentence ends, unfinished and unresolved. I know that feeling. I have watched you live in it. Not with the detachment of someone watching something happen to someone else, but with the full engagement of someone who cares about what they are watching. The waiting seasons are the ones where I am most attentive, not least attentive. Because what is most at risk in the waiting is not the outcome you are waiting for. What is most at risk is the understanding of who I am and whether I can be trusted. The waiting is not primarily about the thing being waited for. The waiting is about you and me, and what happens to that relationship under the pressure of extended unfulfillment. Let me tell you something about what I am doing in the waiting that you cannot see from inside it. In the waiting, I am preparing. Not a vague general preparation that could apply to anything. A specific preparation for what specifically comes next. Preparation happens before the thing, not simultaneous with it. A surgeon prepares before the operation. An architect prepares before construction begins. A farmer prepares the ground before planting. The preparation phase can look like nothing is happening when in fact the most important work of all is happening. The thing you are waiting for requires something to be ready for it. Sometimes the readiness is in the external circumstances, the right people in place, the right resources available, the right timing aligned. Sometimes the readiness is in you, sometimes both at once. In every case, the preparation is happening. The waiting is not empty, it is full. Full of the things I am doing in the space that feels to you like absence. In the waiting, I am also refining something. This is the part that sounds uncomfortable because it is. Refining is a process that involves heat. The impurity has to be brought to the surface by heat before it can be removed. Materials that are going to carry significant weight have to be tested at stresses higher than the expected operating load before they are trusted with the real thing. The waiting season is often a refining season. Not because I enjoy watching you under heat, not because difficulty is somehow good in itself, but because what is coming requires something in you that only heat can produce, and the heat in the waiting season is producing it. The patience that only grows in seasons of extended waiting. The trust that only deepens when trust is the only thing left and it turns out to be sufficient. The intimacy with me that only develops when the comfortable distance of answered prayers and favorable circumstances has been stripped away, and what remains is the raw and necessary encounter with who I actually am, rather than who I am when things are going well. In the waiting, I am also protecting. This is perhaps the hardest to believe when you are inside the waiting, but it is among the most frequently true. The thing you are waiting for is not ready for you yet, or you are not ready for it, or the timing required for it to be what it needs to be for your actual flourishing, rather than just your momentary relief has not yet been achieved. And in the gap between now and then, your life is being protected from the version of the outcome that would have arrived too early or at the wrong level of your readiness. Mercy often looks like closed doors. Not every no is a permanent no. Many of the most significant no's in my children's lives have been the very specific protection of keeping them from arriving at the right destination on the wrong vehicle, or arriving before the station was ready to receive them. Wait with me. Not just for the thing. In the waiting, there is access to a quality of relationship with me that cannot be found in the seasons of easy abundance. The waiting strips away all of the reasons you have to feel good that are not me. It removes the competing sources of comfort. It leaves you with what is most fundamental. And what is most fundamental is me, and my love for you, and my absolute unwillingness to abandon you in the process, even when the process is hard, even when you are angry with me for letting it be hard this long, even when your faith is at its most brittle. I am still here. I have always been here. I will not leave the waiting with you until what I am waiting for alongside you is complete. Now let me speak to something that threads through everything I have said today, and that I want you to carry as a specific and practical orientation for your life going forward. It is the question of how you see yourself when you look in the mirror. Not the literal mirror, though that too. The internal mirror. The one you consult most often, where the image that forms is made not from light and glass, but from accumulated beliefs about who you are, what you deserve, what you are capable of, what others see when they look at you. The image in that mirror has been formed by many hands. Some of them were my hands, some of them were not. And many of my children are living their daily lives in response to an image in that mirror that is significantly distorted by sources other than me, that carry the corrections that need to be made in red prominently, while the original features I designed and love are minimized or missing entirely, that emphasize the blemishes and minimize the structure, that show a smaller, less capacious, less dignified, less beautiful image than what I see when I look at you. I see you clearly. I want that to land as more than a comforting abstraction. I see you clearly means that I see everything you are, every part. The parts you are proud of and the parts you are not. The parts that are fully formed and the parts that are still in process. The parts that reflect me well and the parts that still carry distortions from things that were done to you or things you did yourself. I see all of it. And what I see, having seen all of it, is not what the distorted mirror in your mind shows you. What I see is a child of mine. A person of specific worth and dignity and purpose that does not require performance to be real. A person in whom I have placed things that have not yet fully emerged. A person whose story is not finished. A person whom I love not in the general way of a deity who loves his creation abstractly, but in the specific way of a father who loves this specific child with a love that knows every particular detail and loves in response to those particulars, not despite them. The correction of the distorted mirror is one of the ongoing works I am doing in you. Not by telling you to think positive thoughts about yourself. Not by asking you to ignore the evidence that the mirror is using to justify its distorted image. But by being present as the one who is the ultimate authority on what you actually are, and speaking from that authority consistently, persistently, until the image in your internal mirror begins to align with what I see, rather than with what the distorting lenses that have been pressed against it have produced. This takes time. Distortions installed over years do not correct in moments. But every time you choose to receive what I say about you over what the distorted mirror says about you, the image gets a degree clearer. Every time you act from the truth of your position, rather than from the lies the mirror has been showing you, you practice the true image, and the practiced image becomes more available. Every time you catch the distortion operating, the automatic assumption of inadequacy or unworthiness or disqualification, and you choose not to accept it as true, you loosen its grip on what you believe about yourself. You are more than the mirror has been showing you. The mirror has had too many distorting lenses pressed against it for too long. I am the cleaner of mirrors. And as we have sat here together, something has been cleaning. Some of the accumulated distortion that has been sitting over the image of who you actually are has been moving. Not all of it. Probably not most of it. But some. And some is where we start. Keep coming back to these truths. Not because you need to earn them by frequency of exposure, but because the truth that reshapes your deepest beliefs is truth that is visited regularly, held consistently, returned to when the distorted image tries to reassert itself. The identity I have given you is true whether you are feeling it or not, but the feeling, the actual experiential sense of it, of being settled in who you are, of carrying yourself from the knowledge of your position, that develops over time through the repeated choice to return to what is true rather than defaulting to the familiar distortion. You are worth that work, every moment of it, and I will be in every moment of it with you. One more thing. There is a specific person or a specific situation that came to your mind as you listened today. Something that the words touched and activated in a way that made you think of something or someone beyond yourself. A person you love who is struggling in a way that these words would speak to. A situation in your own life that needs the application of what has been said today in a specific and concrete way. A thing you have been avoiding that this conversation is nudging you toward. Pay attention to that. not as superstition, but as attentiveness. The thing that stirred when you listened is usually something that I stirred. I work through resonance, through the connection between what is being said and what is already alive in you, the thing you already knew but needed to hear confirmed, the thing you were already feeling but needed to see named, the thing you were already being called toward but needed the encouragement to actually move toward. When something stirs in you as you receive a word like this, the stir is information. It is worth sitting with, worth taking seriously, worth acting on. Go to the person who came to your mind. Share what you received today, not because you are now qualified to be their teacher, because you are a person who received something that they need, and the most natural thing in the world is to pass on what you received. That is how the kingdom works. Not through institutions and programs, though those have their place. Through one person receiving something from me and turning to another person and saying, "Listen, I heard something today that I think is for you too." That is the movement of my love through the world. Person to person, moment to moment. Not spectacular but pervasive. Not impressive but real. You have been given something today. Something worth sharing. Something that will not diminish by being given. Something that grows as it is passed along. Take it with you. Into every room you walk into. Into every conversation you have. Into every relationship that has been placed in your specific sphere of influence for this specific chapter of your story. You are a carrier of something real. And the world around you, the specific small world of your specific relationships and your specific community, needs what you carry. Go. And as you go, remember what you are. Remember what you stand on. Remember who walks with you. And let the remembering change everything else. Come even closer now. What I am about to say is not for the noise around you, but for the deepest part of you. The part that has been listening underneath all of the other listening. The part that receives what is spoken at a level below explanation. I want to address you there. In that place. In the part of you that has always known there was more to the story than what the surface showed. That has always reached, even without understanding what it was reaching for, toward something larger than what the visible world could contain. You have been changing. I know it has not always felt like change in the right direction. Seasons that felt like regression, like losing what you had worked to build, like going backward through territory you thought you had already covered. Those seasons were not regression. I want you to understand what they actually were, because misunderstanding them has cost you. Those seasons were preparation. They were excavation. They were the removal of soil that had to be cleared before a deeper foundation could be poured. And this is critical to understand, because it changes the way you interpret the difficult seasons when they come. And they will come. And they will feel like what they always feel like going backward, like losing, like diminishment. But they are not that. When a construction project requires a deeper foundation than was originally planned, deeper than the original excavation allowed for, the crew has to go back down, has to remove more, has to disrupt what was already in the ground. From above, from the perspective of someone watching, it looks like the project is moving backward. The hole is getting bigger. Things that were placed are being removed. Progress seems to have reversed. But the engineer knows something the observer does not. The engineer knows that the depth being achieved now is the depth required for the building that is actually going to be built. That the disruption is not failure. That what looks like backward movement is actually preparation for the kind of forward movement that a shallower excavation would never have been able to support. The version of you that is emerging from this season is a more stable version, built on a deeper foundation than the version that existed before the difficult seasons began. More genuinely rooted. Less dependent on the stability of favorable circumstances to feel stable. More capable of sustaining weight because the capacity has been developed through the seasons of carrying weight you did not choose and could not put down. More genuinely fruitful because the root system goes deeper than it used to, down below the drought-affected soil, down to water sources that the surface conditions cannot reach. Roots go down in the dark. This is a thing worth sitting with, because it applies to your life in ways you may not have fully noticed. A tree does not grow roots by searching for the light, The roots grow in the opposite direction of the light, down into the dark, into the earth, into the unknown below. And the deeper the roots go, the more stable the above-ground structure becomes. The tree that looks most magnificent above the ground is almost always the tree with the most extensive root system below it. The visible beauty and the invisible work are proportional. What you cannot see is producing what you can see. In the dark seasons of your life, in the seasons that felt most like absence and most like loss, and most like going in a direction opposite to where you thought you were supposed to go, your roots were going deeper. Into me, into truth, into an understanding of my character that only comes from needing me in ways that are beyond what a comfortable season requires. Into a capacity for faith that only develops when faith is the only thing left, when the comfortable reasons to trust have been removed by the circumstances, and what remains is either raw faith in who I am or nothing. The roots went down in those seasons. They are down there now, and they are holding you up, not visibly, not in a way you can point to and say, look, this is where the support is, but structurally, in the way that the tree is held up by what you cannot see from the outside. Your roots are in me, and nothing that presses against the above-ground part of your life can reach what is anchored below. Now I want to come to you in the specific reality of this moment, not as a theological statement about all moments in general, here, right now. In whatever is specifically happening in your life right now, the thing you woke up with, the thing that follows you through the ordinary parts of the day like an uninvited companion, the thing that sits at the back of every other thought waiting to reclaim the foreground when you stop actively pushing it away. I want to speak to that thing, to the specific weight of it, to the specific way it feels when you hold it. You have been holding more than you were designed to hold alone. Not because you are weak. I want to say that clearly, because the accumulation of weight often produces the conclusion that the person carrying it is insufficiently strong, that a stronger person would not be struggling as much, that the degree of strain you feel is evidence of some deficiency in your character or your faith. That conclusion is wrong. The strain is not evidence of weakness. It is evidence of something being carried that was not designed to be carried by one person without the partnership I offered from the beginning. The design specifications for your life include my involvement at every load-bearing point. Not as a supervisor who tells you how to manage the weight, but as a partner who takes a portion of the weight alongside you, who says, not in general spiritual language but in the specific practical sense, give me the part of this that belongs to me. And there is always a part that belongs to me. There is always a portion of what you are carrying that I offered to carry with you, and that you, for reasons that make complete sense given your history, decided to manage independently instead. Maybe because you learned early that dependence was risky. Maybe because reaching out for help produced disappointment often enough that you stopped reaching. Maybe because the pride of managing on your own felt safer than the vulnerability of admitting you needed something you could not provide for yourself. All of those reasons are understandable. None of them change the offer. I am reaching for the weight right now. The specific portion of what you are carrying that was designed to be carried with my help. The worry about the future of someone you love that is beyond your ability to control no matter how carefully you try. The grief about something that happened that cannot be undone, that sits heavy in a particular place in your chest and does not move when you try to move it. The exhaustion of having been strong for a very long time for other people without adequate replenishment of your own reserves. The unanswered question about your own direction, your own calling, your own place in the larger story that you keep turning over and never quite resolving. These things have weight, and you have been holding them. And I am saying, specifically, deliberately, with full knowledge of what they are and how long you have been holding them. Let me take the portion of this that is mine to carry. Not all of your weight. Some of your weight is yours to hold, and I will walk beside you in it. But the part that belongs to me is not helping you by staying in your hands. It is only straining something that was not designed to hold it alone. Let go of that piece, right now. In whatever way letting go looks for you. If it looks like a prayer, pray it. If it looks like a breath released, breathe it. If it looks like acknowledging out loud, even just to yourself, that you have been holding something you were not built to hold alone. Say it. The release does not require a particular ceremony. It requires intention. The intention of turning toward me rather than away from me with the weight. Of opening your hands rather than keeping them closed around it. Of trusting that what is in my hands is safer than what is in yours, not because I am more competent, though I am, but because I was designed for this in a way that you were not. I was designed to carry what is ultimately too large for human carrying. And my design includes the capacity to hold what you release without being diminished by it, which means the release costs you nothing and gives me nothing I cannot hold. And as you release it, something will shift. Not dramatically, not necessarily. The circumstances may not change in this moment. The situation that created the weight may still be there when you finish listening. The relationship that is difficult may still be difficult. The unanswered question may still be unanswered. What shifts is not always the visible reality. What shifts first is the weight. The portion of it that was never yours becomes mine again as you release it. And you discover that what remains, the portion that is genuinely yours to carry, is actually manageable. It was the borrowed weight, the weight that was not yours to begin with, that was creating the sense of being overwhelmed. Your actual load, the one I designed for your specific frame and capacity, is not beyond you. I did not design you for a life whose demands would exceed what you are able to bear with my help. The designed load is exactly right for who you are and what you are being called to. The borrowed load is what has been crushing you, so release it, all of it that does not belong to you, and then stand under what remains, with me beside you in it, and feel the difference. Feel what it is like to carry what is actually yours, rather than everything you have been carrying. Feel what it is like to move through the day when the weight is right-sized. Feel what it is like to be human in the way I designed human to be, limited and dependent and in relationship with me, rather than autonomous and overwhelmed and pretending to manage what you were never designed to manage alone. This is what I'm inviting you into. Not a life without weight, a life where the weight you carry is the right weight, carried the right way, with the right partnership. A life where your back is not breaking under what I never put on it. A life where what I did put on it, the specific designed calling of your specific designed life, is something you can walk into with the steadiness that comes from not being additionally burdened by what was never yours. Let me remind you of something else before I speak the words that are waiting to be spoken over you. Do you remember, in the earlier parts of what we have covered today, when I spoke about the building, the foundation, the load-bearing walls? I want to return to that image for just a moment, because there is one more thing in it that I have not yet said. A completed building is not a silent thing. It speaks, not in words, but in what it makes possible. A building, when it is complete, creates space that did not exist before. It turns open air into shelter. It turns what was exposed into what is protected. It creates rooms where life can happen, where relationships can deepen, where work can be done and rest can be taken, and the ordinary, beautiful dailiness of existence can be lived. The building is not the life. The building is what makes the life livable. It is the container for what matters. Your life, as I am building it, is not the ultimate point. It is the container. The relationships that happen in it, the love that is expressed through it, the contribution that is made from it, the people whose lives are touched by it, the moments of grace that pass from you to someone else through the ordinary, miraculous daily interactions of your specific life. That is the life that is happening inside the building. And that life, the life inside the building, the things that happen because you are who you are, located where you are located, connected to the people you are connected to, is the thing I have always been building toward. Your life matters not only to you, it matters to the people in it. It matters to the people whose paths will cross yours in chapters not yet written. It matters in ways you will never fully see from inside it, the way a stone that lands in a lake creates rings that extend further than any eye can trace from the point of impact. Every act of genuine love, every moment of real courage, every time you chose the true thing over the comfortable thing, every prayer you offered in the dark when nothing confirmed it would be heard, every time you got back up, Every season you stayed faithful when faithfulness was very expensive. All of it has been and will be creating rings in the lives around you that extend in directions you cannot see and will not fully know until you are standing in the place where everything becomes clear. Live accordingly, knowing that what you do matters in ways your current visibility cannot confirm. Knowing that the building being built in you is a container for something that will touch beyond the immediate. Knowing that you are placed here, in this time, in this community, in these specific relationships, not randomly but specifically, for purposes that include people and moments and impacts that are not yet visible to you. And knowing that the one who is building you for this is trustworthy, knows the plans, is committed to the completion, will not stop building until the building is complete. Now, let me speak over you. Let me address you with the full weight of everything that has been built through this time. Everything laid in the foundation, every declaration made, every truth established, everything about who you are and who I am, and what that means for everything that comes next. Hear this, not as a general word for anyone listening, but as a word for you, specifically, in this moment, from the one who has known you before you knew yourself. My courageous one, you were not built to break. You were built to bend when the forces are strong and stand when the bending is done, because the root system goes deeper than any storm can reach. Every time you thought the storm was going to be the one that finally took the tree down, the roots held. Every time the wind pressed hardest and the above ground part swayed, and you were not sure whether it would stop swaying, the below ground held firm. The tree is still standing, and the roots are deeper now than they were before the last storm. Which means the next storm, however strong it is, will meet a more anchored tree than the ones before it did. You are not who the hardest season of your life named you. You are not the accumulation of losses. You are not the sum of the moments when you fell short. You are not the story that the most discouraging chapter of your life tried to tell about you. You are what I said before any of those chapters began. You are my child, built from my hand, bearing my image, however imperfectly, however partially, in ways that persist even when you cannot see them. And my image includes something that does not break. Something that bends, yes, that strains under weight, yes, that goes through seasons of genuine difficulty, yes, but does not ultimately, irreversibly break. Because I do not make things that break irreversibly. I make things that can always be restored. And I am the one doing the making. Your position is secure. The citizenship holds. The standing is not diminished by the struggles. The access remains open. The backing is in place, not provisionally, not conditionally, not on a timeline that runs out when the next difficulty arrives. The things I have declared over your life are still declared. Every word I have spoken about who you are and what your future holds and what my purposes for you are, those words have not been retracted. They are not subject to revision based on how the current season looks from the outside. They were spoken from a perspective that sees the whole story, beginning to end. And what that perspective says about your life is not what your hardest chapter says about it. The courage I am describing, the deep kind, the kind rooted in knowing rather than performing, is what you carry out of this moment. Not manufactured, not borrowed from a feeling that will need to be renewed the next time the circumstances press in. Something more structural than feeling. Something that has been placed in the architecture of who you are and reinforced through every season where you needed it and used it and found out it held. You are more courageous than you think you are, not because of what you have managed to accomplish, because of what has been built into you by the one who designed you for the life you are living. The path ahead of you continues. There are rooms in the building that have not yet been built. There are sections of your story that have not yet been written. There are things I am planning for you that are larger than what you can currently imagine from the vantage point of where you stand right now. And I am building toward all of it, with the same precision and the same love and the same certainty of good outcome that I have had since before you began. The building is not finished. The best rooms are still ahead. And I am your architect, your companion on the road, the one who walks ahead to prepare what is coming and beside you as you walk through it and behind you, to make sure nothing sneaks up from behind unaccounted for. Go forward as who you are, my courageous one, my child, my planned one, my loved one. Go forward on the foundation that was set for you before you knew you needed one. Walk on the ground that was secured for you before you knew it needed securing. Face what comes with the knowledge of who stands behind you, not the temporary knowledge of a good moment that will need to be replenished when the good feeling fades, but the structural knowledge of something that has been built into you and tested and proven. You are covered. You are held. You are not alone in any of it. Not in the ordinary days and not in the extraordinary ones. Not in the triumphant moments and not in the ones where you fall short. Not when your faith is large and not when it is as small as it can possibly be while still being present. In all of it, I am here, building, continuing, working toward the completion of what I began in you with the full intention of completing it. And the completion I have in mind is magnificent, more than you have imagined, more than the best vision you have had of what your life could be, more than what you would choose for yourself if you could see all of your options. Because I see all of the options, and I have always chosen the best one for you. And the best one for you is what I am building toward, step by step, season by season, from the foundation up. Amen. If this message reached something deep in you today, something that needed to hear these words, please share it with someone else who needs to hear them. There are people in your life who are carrying weight they were not designed to carry alone, who have forgotten what they are standing on, who need to be reminded of who they are and who they belong to. Be the one who sends them this message. Type Amen in the comments below to receive this blessing and to let others know you were here and this reached you. Your comment encourages others who are listening. Subscribe to this channel so that you never miss a message, and carry with you from this moment the knowledge of what you are made of, who made you, and what that means for every step of the road ahead.